Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Sunday Podcast, presented by sportshoes.com. I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
This podcast is all about elite distance running in the UK.
We're here to give you all the latest news updates around the sport,
as well as weekly interviews with athletes and coaches.
Stay up to date by following us on Instagram and X at Sunday Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where we post athlete workout videos, shoe reviews and more.
Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, welcome back to another episode. Cracking guest on for this week, as you'll have seen from the title, of Mr. Brett Robinson. I believe he's our first Aussie on the pod, Matt. I think we went and fact-checked that. We'd had loads of Kiwis on, but first Aussie and Brett, so obviously that interview's coming up. But before we get into that, obviously got to chat about this World Cross Country team and a few more events, don't we?
Oh, we do, mate, because, in the counties was on the weekend. Nice little selection from there. And to be fair, they did I think all the top four in men's and women's and under 20s as well. I think they're all selected. So I actually thought that was quite fair and quite decent, to be honest with you. So it was a little bit more of a trial race than we were kind of originally thinking, because I know there was a few discretionary spots and stuff. So, but I mean, people have been, I guess, moaning already. I mean, could have took 6, but they've just gone for 5 in the men's and women's. What do we think about that, man? I mean, to be honest, it's better than Australia. So, and we'd hope it would be, only being in Belgrade, which isn't a million miles away.
Yeah, I think, like you say, it's an improvement on what we've seen or come to be used to in recent years. But at the same time, look, we would always obviously like to see full teams. At any event, wouldn't we? Especially cross country, where there's no qualifying standard. So there's not really a reason not to take a full team.
Yeah, what I rated, to be honest with you, and maybe it's a good or a bad thing, but the way that we've actually got 5 in the seniors and we've got a bit less in, I think, the under 20s. So there's just 4 on each team, and I think that's good. Sometimes they'll pack the teams. I mean, I think Uganda, they just took under 20s, didn't they? And they didn't take any seniors. And I just thought that was such a backwards way of thinking, because I know you can argue development, but I think there's a lot of opportunities for under 20s. There's lots of European competitions, there's track competitions, there's England vests. And for seniors, I don't think there's many opportunities to get a vest over the country. And I just thought that was a terrible decision then. So I'm glad to see that they're starting to put a little bit more importance on developing the seniors, because we could have some fantastic cross-country runners over the next few years, and going to these events is very, very important. So yeah, I was pleased. The senior teams were slightly bigger. Obviously, we've got the mixed relay team as well. Should we break the teams down a little bit and kind of discuss the inter-counties? One man that stood out for me, Callum Johnson, just gets it right. And a few years ago when he won the National Cross, I felt like that was his big goal. And this year, I think it's probably fair to say making that World Cross team was his big goal. And he's looked pretty good all season, but I think we'll have to speak to him, but I think he was even within himself on the weekend as well. And he looked very comfortable, and he played it out, sat back and just kind of squeezed it towards the end, and just ran a very, very good race.
Yeah, we will have to speak to him, won't we, mate? So perhaps one that might be coming up in the future. So obviously fantastic run from him, and he really is cementing himself as one of the top cross country runners in the UK, and great to see that he's one that Liverpool, maybe he's not the top dog, but he's making sure that at these other events he's going there and he's winning. And that team now, kind of both the men's and the women's. Obviously, Abby Donnelly winning the women's. She's someone that on the women's side is pretty much doing the same thing, making sure that she's always on those cross country teams, always taking top spot at these big events, largely into counties, and things like that. So it's good to see. Yeah, let's break down the teams, mate. Because let's look at that men's side first. Cause it's pretty strong, isn't it? Will Barnaco, Tom Evans, Callum Johnson, James Kingston, and Scott Sterling in there.
Oh yeah. Oh, we didn't see Barney. Obviously, National Cross got cancelled. I'm pretty sure we would have seen him there. I think he's on the start list to do podium today or tomorrow, actually. So let's see what he can run over 5K. He must be in some pretty good shape, getting ready for that World Cross. He knows it's going to be a hard event, and you'd expect him to be our low scorer, or the man leading the team home. But fair play to Tom Evans. I mean, Jesus Christ, he seems to be getting better and better on the mud, and to make a world cross team is shows the caliber he is, even though he does his, ultras and stuff like that. So I'd love to see kind of how his training has just he's tweaked it a little bit to be that good on the cross, or if he's even tweaked it. He must be doing some faster stuff. Seen him doing a bit of Loughborough training with a few of those guys as well. So yeah, and then James Kingston as well. Like credit where it's due. The guy is a cross country specialist. I think it's fair to say that in that men's team, they're all, and maybe I'm stating the obvious here, but they are all kind of cross country specialists, aren't they? Not many of them. I mean, Barnacle translates to the track. But the others are just very, very good at what they do.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right, mate. Because it's not something we always see. Like I think at Eurocross we have a bit more of a mix, don't we? In that people who are just some of our best endurance athletes on the track or the road, for example, are translating that onto the mud. Whereas I think you're bang on there with these five. Definitely, kind of the three in Johnson, Kingston, and Sterling probably are a real cross country specialist. And then
Saying
obviously
that,
got
saying that as well, I just want to point out the course was, kind of world cross-esque underfoot. It was very firm. It was very dry. Um, they ran it on the other side of Woollerton Park, or the old side, I call it. Back in the day, they had the intercounties there. And so it is probably a fair replica of what the world cross like underfoot will be like in a few weeks' time as well.
mm, for sure. And should we get into the women's team as well? So obviously we mentioned Abby Donnelly took the win at the intercounties, and she's going. Then we got Alice Goodall, Lauren McNeil, Neve Brown, and Jess Judd. Obviously the big name in there too. Is going to be racing on the track, and then go to World Cross a couple weeks later. So look, she's going to be in great shape. I don't think there's any denying that. Is 2 weeks enough time to recover, Matt?
Yeah, well, she's gonna be in California tomorrow night, racing the 10, going for an Olympic standard there. Obviously, we had her on just after, was it Valencia 10K when she just missed that standard,
Mm,
chip time, confusion, all this. Um, so she'll look to nail it. But I think, to be honest, if she's nailing that world standard, which I think she will, she's going to be in fantastic shape going into World Cross because it's basically the same. It will be fast, it will be firm, it will basically be a 10K on the track almost, not too different. So I think. But what I would say, that women's team with Jess Judd and Abby Donnelly, you'd like to think both of those can kind of get close to top 15 at World Cross.
mm,
Um, which means they might be in with a shot of like I guess it's so hard to get a medal because I think it's just three to score, which I think is terrible. But because it's not really a reflection of your team, it's just a reflection of your fastest runner. And you get a low stick, it's game over for all the other teams. So but they're going to be, we are going to have a pretty strong team. And yeah, McNeil and Goodall as well ran very strong races. I mean, to only be sort of 15, 26 behind Donnelly, um, is solid from McNeil. Like, because we know how good Donnelly is on the mud and stuff as well. And she's someone who has been targeting this. She's been doing cross country all winter, and she's been targeting the World Cross, which is encouraging. And I think it is going to help her when she transitions that sort of 6 weeks down the line. If she goes on to Highgate, I think she's just going to be so strong. Bit of a surprise. I mean, we got to shout out Neve Brown as well. Massive run. I'm pretty sure that's her first senior GB vest. Amelia Quirk just missing out. Lauren Hayes just missing out as well. So a few surprises.
yeah. Some good runs in there. Obviously, the big one really is no Megan Keith. Like obviously back in November, December, we were saying, oh yeah, Megan Keith's definitely targeting the World Cross. We haven't seen her in a while. I believe it's some sort of injury or just not being quite ready to race. But I'm not haven't heard too much, so I wouldn't want to say kind of one way or the other really.
Well, she's on, mate. She's on the 10 start list, bud. So
Oh, she
she's
is
going to be
okay.
racing. Yeah, she's racing tomorrow night. So I just think she's been gearing everything towards that 10K. Um, in California, she just could try and nail that Olympic standard, and I think that's the way to go, isn't it? She's taken a leaf. Obviously, she was in fantastic shape pre-Christmas, and I think it surprised me how well, she wasn't quiet post-Christmas, but yeah, we didn't see too much of her, did we? I thought we'd see her a bit more on the cross and looking to go to that World Cross, but I think she's put priority on nailing that 10K standard. And again, if she doesn't do it this time around, maybe she's thinking about Highgate, and then kind of bouncing off of this one in California, and then having Highgate as a backup, which again, maybe World Cross is just going to distract her from that. And But I expect to see something special from her in this 10K because her track season last year was very, very good. She seemed to have got fitter throughout the winter. So if she's in that shape or better, she's going to run something quite special. I think around about 30-30 or something like that.
Mm. Well, yeah, then in that case, yeah, if she's running the 10 tomorrow night, that makes complete sense, doesn't it? And as we know, these standards so hard to hit, and if you can get a chance to knock it out in March, then why wouldn't you? So, yeah, I think definitely she'll be close to that then if she's fit. And like you say, as we saw, kind of what Eurocross, we saw at Liverpool, we saw at Cardiff Cross, she's just absolutely flying back then. So just depends, doesn't it? They're the ones I always slightly worry about though. When you've not done anything except train, like I think it can go either way. In the you're running so quick that actually you're probably in your best shape then, and you're almost ready to go. But it's like
Mhm.
how do you manage that training period for the next sort of what 3 months it's been to ensure that actually kind of you don't kind of spill over the top and do a bit too much, you know.
Yeah, we don't know. She keeps a low profile. We've tried to get her on the podcast. Hopefully she's listening. We just contacted her at a very busy time. So we'll find out a little bit more how she trains. But she does keep a low profile and she may be on a training camp, and just preparing meticulously. It's worked for quite a few of our people though. I mean, look at like Jack Rowe. It's working for him. He's going to go in that 10. I mean, we'll preview that 10 in a little bit, actually. We'll just finish up with this World Cross team because we got the relay to discuss as well. And there is a relay. And again, this was complete expression of interest, no trial. I think no one seems to have moaned about that. I think again, though, it is an opportunity for people to go and get a GB vest. But Fog Dog, coming off a world indoors, he's going to go out, make it part of his plans. Tom Keane, Alex Millard, Bethan Morley. So not a bad quartet. Um, and actually, like from speaking to a few people, I think actually getting people to, and this is why I think if there was a trial, you'd get people who really want to be there. Whereas I think a few of these athletes are, do they actually want to be there, or are they just, don't want to turn down a GB vest? They've expressed a bit of interest, and it would kind of be nice to go do the relay and compete.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think this year, like with it, like you say, it's not like going to Australia like before. I think going to Australia for a relay when perhaps you've got some bigger plans. It was a bit long in for want of a better expression, but I think this year there's not really an excuse not to want to go for any of these athletes. Like I think, yeah, you can understand why you don't get the likes of Josh Kerr and Jake Whiteman going. But we're not talking about that caliber athlete, are we? And I think it's a pretty strong team. Obviously, Beth Morley ran well at that short course. Millard went last year. Tom Keen's just ran a 1500 meter PB. Fogdog obviously coming off the indoors. So that's a pretty strong team, isn't it? And pretty reflective of what we've had at these relays in recent years.
Yeah, yeah. Um, be interesting to see what other country, what other countries, what their teams look like and how strong their teams are as well. I mean, we're about to speak to Brett. And so asking him about how the Australian cross team was shaping up and stuff, and obviously pretty poor. And he said his first time actually that Australia are making their seniors pay. And he said that was more of a reflection of the team that they were putting out because I think they didn't have any big guns and they just thought we can't justify paying for these people who might finish, pretty much towards the back, to put it nicely. £3,000 to go over there. So the seniors are actually forking out 2,500. Brett said to go on that world, to make the trip over to World Cross. And I think if that's countries like Australia, how strong they are right now, I know obviously it's a long way, but yeah, I haven't heard too much about like I wonder what other countries' teams are going to be like. I mean, France ran very well at the Eurocross. Are they going to have the same guys, or are they going to be preparing for something else? 10Ks, 5Ks coming up. So we'll see. I mean, I just think the way the nature of this season's gone with World Indoors, we've heard very little about the World Cross. We'll try and find as much as we can, especially next week, to really talk about it because
Mm.
that'll be a week out from the championships. But one thing's for sure, I mean, you're just going to get an absolute, turnout from the East Africans, aren't you? So, but yeah, mate, let's It's one thing I wanted to mention as well. Result we saw crop up: Paulos 61:20 in Ghent. How about that?
Yeah, hell of a run, isn't it? And it's just adding to the strength we have in the half marathon in this country. At what point are you gonna take on a marathon, Matt? Because I guess look,
London.
is he?
London, yeah. So last week, obviously the fields were announced last week, and I don't even think we mentioned him, just because he hadn't done anything in ages. But now it
Yeah, well,
is,
I just missed it off the list, so there you
yeah,
go.
it's worth mentioning him now because 61:20. I think he'd run 63 and 64 numerous times, and we know he'd do heavy training stints in Kenya, get back, race, and it would either go one way really well or not so great.
Mm.
But rumor on the street is he's running very well. I think you're running 61:20. Got to be in with a shot of that 208.10 standard. This is another
You got to
man.
be going for it, don't you?
Yeah,
That's the thing.
another man thrown into the hat there, and I think it's finally clicking for him, which is great. All those years in kind of back and forth from Kenya are paying off.
Yeah, London Marathon, as always, shaping up to be perhaps the race of the year. I think every year it comes around and we're like, we've got a story and we've got sort of a British race going on. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. But yeah, let's get into that episode with Brett Robinson. So yeah, enjoy that. He speaks to us a lot about kind of his preparations ahead of the Paris Marathon and the Olympics, where he's been pre-selected for Australia too. So enjoy. Okay, first off, Brett, just welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on. What time is it over in Australia at the moment, and what are you up to?
Thanks very much, guys. Excited to be on. It's 7:04 p.m. So I've just finished my afternoon run. Wait for my Uber Eats to come, but thought I could just jump on a quick little interview with you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. What was the run, if you don't mind sharing?
I just did an easy 8K. So had a threshold this morning. So just my second run for the day.
Nice and simple stuff. I'm sure we'll get into some of your training later, but one thing I wanted to ask you at the start, like obviously you went to Rio, you went to Tokyo, Paris this year. Do you feel like you're at the peak of your career now?
Yeah, definitely. I think with well, I guess like when I look at my training, I feel like I am because a lot of my training is better than it ever was like before Rio and stuff like that. Like I feel a lot fitter. Like obviously it's different. Like when I go back and do a bit of 5K stuff now, I find that pretty hard. But fitness wise, like I feel like I'm handling the training way better than I was back then. My body feels good. So yeah, I feel like for the long distance wise, definitely feel like I'm in the peak right now.
Mm. It's an exciting time for you heading into Paris. I mean, one of the things I wanted to ask you, Brett, was what were the biggest takeaways from Tokyo, that Olympic marathon? You finished it, which I think on the day was just that's all you wanted to get done. Kind of once you set off, it was a pretty brutal experience, wasn't it? So what are your biggest takeaways that you'll be taking into Paris?
Yeah, definitely. Man, when I got into Tokyo, like we were training obviously it was a weird Olympics with all the COVID and everything going on, but I was training in like northern Australia where it's usually pretty warm. It's always like 30 degrees. But when I got to Tokyo, I'm like, oh, this is proper heat. And straight away I kind of realized like I wasn't quite enough prepared for that kind of heat. Like we thought we had been doing a fair bit, but we just couldn't being in winter in Australia, we just couldn't really replicate that humidity in that was in Tokyo. So definitely learned a lot from that. But just like I think every marathon you can learn something from. I definitely panicked a lot when when things started not going my way, and you can easily kind of lose it mentally. So I think from after Tokyo, like I kind of went on a good period of running, like winning a marathon, running I think maybe two PBs in the next year. So it's like I definitely kind of it was a turning point for me, I'd say.
Mm. So afterwards, did training change at all, or do you just think like mentally, just kind of something changed?
Yeah, I think just mentally as well. Like, I like kind of spoke to my coach, and he's like, what I actually did was I went and ran the Melbourne Marathon, which is it's not like going to London Marathon. It's like more of a local one. Like I think I won it in 2:13 or 2:14. Kind of racing like more local guys. And I think that was just like the first time I had really run a marathon and been able to run hard the last 5K instead of just surviving. Like a lot of the time, I'm just hoping the finish line gets here. And so that one, I think, kind of doing that was like a really good thing for me because I was like, all right, this is what it feels like to push at that point instead of just like holding on. So I gained a lot from that marathon.
Mm. How do you prepare physically for some of these championship races? Because I think, as we know, the sport these days is so much about times, but I think in the marathon, even more so than normal, because like you say, there's not many opportunities you get where you can sort of jog it in or you can just win the race or run tactically. It's often actually you're probably not physically fit enough to go with the pace, which is why your tactics are probably sit off it. How do you prepare then when an Olympic marathon probably there is a lot more coming into that in terms of race preparation and tactics.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the Olympic marathon. Like, I think I spoke to you about this the other day, Matt. Like, if everyone turned up Valencia and we ran it there, like it'd just be crazy because like I'd be finishing 6 minutes behind. Where in the Olympics, like everyone's kind of a lot more together. It is about who can handle the conditions and the day a lot better. Like a lot of people have shockers as well, and a lot of the top guys can have shockers. So I think it's for someone like me, I think it's kind of pretty a bit of motivation because you're like, all right, I can compete a bit better at a race like this. And so that's kind of like what I'll be thinking about. Kind of like, yeah, it's like, yes, I've got the guys that are around me that are that I want to beat, but there's also the opportunity to finish really high if you can run a smart race and handle the conditions really well.
I think it's just a case of staying in the race later on, isn't it? Because like I said, anything can happen. What's Australia's best finish in an Olympic marathon, mate?
Well, it would be Rob de Castella, I think, and be pretty high. I reckon it could be I reckon he maybe came fourth or fifth or something.
Right. But you've nabbed his national record already, haven't you?
I have. So yeah, he had that record for 36 years, I think. So I've
Jesus.
taken that. So yeah, maybe try to follow in his footsteps. He was a world champ as well. So he was a very good runner back in his day.
Is anyone challenging you at the moment in Australia marathon running? I know the track seems to be taking off in Australia. You guys have got some great talent coming through as well. But how is Australia marathon running right now on the men's side?
Yeah, so we had Pat Teenan run in Houston. He ran 2:07:45, so just 14 seconds slower than what I've run. And he'll go and run faster. Like he's like such a good athlete. And I reckon he's trained his whole life for the marathon. Like when you look at his training for the 5K, it was pretty much like marathon training. Like he's just that kind of like diesel engine, just kind of runs a solid pace just for a long time and can just it looks so smooth doing it too. So he's got heaps of potential in the marathon. There's Liam Adams who ran 2:08:39 or something at Gold Coast last year, which is like was a huge PB for him. I think it was like 3-minute PB nearly.
That's big.
Yeah, probably 2.5-minute PB. So he's trying to go down I think he's running Hamburg Marathon at the end of April. But so we're probably the main three, and then there's another guy, Andy Buchanan, back at 2:10.
Nice, man.
With some of that though, obviously you mentioned you're still the fastest by what 14 seconds. What we wanted to ask you about, you run that 59:57, I believe, in the half back in 2020. Is that maybe the best run of your career? And do you think what do you think that means for sort of your marathon potential?
Yeah, it definitely. I think it was the best run. Like my 2:07:31 was a great run, and it was such a relief because I'd been trying to kind of have that marathon breakthrough, and I just wasn't really like things would go wrong. Like I've struggled for years with stitches, and I still even when I ran 2:07 still had that stitch. But yeah, that half marathon was just like the perfect day. It was and it was probably like the first breakthrough. Like I've had some good results on the track, and but this one like winning the race as well, and just like going into it. Like I remember I did an interview a few days before for the race, and I was like, yeah, if I break 61, I'll be really happy. And I went a full minute quicker than like kind of what I thought I'd run. And it's just like it was one of those days where everything felt good. But yeah, I think it shows that I should be running a lot quicker in the marathon. I still haven't feel like I just haven't nailed it. Like things go wrong every single marathon, like especially like this stitch problem that I get. Sometimes get on top of it and still run decently, but like I really think I should be running like a 205, 206.
Mhm.
But it is easy said than done.
Mate, this is something that, yeah, I kind of knew a little bit about this stitch problem that you've got. I think this would be interesting to the listeners as well. So, like I said, you've had an up and down marathon career. Sometimes you can run really well, hence the PB and stuff, and sometimes it just does go Pete Tong. What is this stitch problem, and how frustrating is that? Like when you know you've got an issue, and it's just like you can't really get it fixed. Like how many specialists have you seen? I can only imagine the kind of work you've gone through to try and get this sorted.
Yeah, well, when I first met you in America, like the reason I was in America was to go and see a specialist.
Right.
For it. Like I've had scans. Like I ran London Marathon one year and got the stitch and pulled out, and then like the next day when I got an MRI, like I've seen people all around the world trying to get on top of it, and like no one really knows what it is. It's something to do with my breathing because my breathing, when I do change my breathing, I can kind of get the feeling of it to go away, but it keeps coming back. But yeah, pretty much on this right side of my just below my ribs. Usually after about 75 minutes of running, I get a spasm and just reduced to a jog a lot of the time. Um, I kind of have come up with this breathing technique that helps it, but it might help it for a little bit and then it'll come back. So what's really hard is like when I usually get it, it's like kind of around that 25K mark. It's when I'm like the race is kind of starting to break
Yeah.
up a little bit. So I might be in a pack and then I get it and then I'm like, all right, I've dropped off. So when I ran Fukuoka last year, like I kind of got it, I dropped off and I was like, all right, I'm feeling good again. And then I'm like working hard to try to get back to the race and like so I'm like kind of surging, and it really plays with my kind of the race, I guess, and like and that's what I'm worried about at the Olympics. Like I don't want to get it and then like
Mm.
get rid of it, and like all right, now the race is down the road, and kind of like miss my opportunity a little bit. But it is something very frustrating. Like there's been plenty of times where I'm like, oh, maybe I should just like not worry about the marathon anymore. Just run fun runs around Australia and just pick up a few grand every weekend and just do that because it's not really like it is so frustrating because like I give up kind of 3 months of my training just for this one race and then yeah, it's like you doing a test at school and you forget to put your name on it. Like you've nailed the test, but you forget to put your
Mm.
name on it, kind of thing. It's just like taken away from you at the last second, and you can be feeling good, and then yeah, it's so frustrating. And when you're doing it at the Olympics and you're representing Australia and you're jogging, wanting to go harder, but you just can't because
Mm.
like it's just hurts straight away. It's just like it feels embarrassing and yeah, like I hate it. So I've tried everything to get on top of it and I'm a bit closer, but yeah, haven't quite nailed it yet.
Man, you said you change your breathing. What does that look like? What do you start going nasal breathing?
Yeah, yeah. So it was so weird when I ran London when it was in October, in 2022, and so I'd been doing all these like mobility and like stretches and like I thought I had this perfect plan. Like I really thought I was on
Mm.
top of it, and then kind of got to the same point in the race. Stitch comes on, and I was like, oh, and then just like this thought came into my mind of like this high school coach that said, if you get a stitch, just like take 2 breaths in, 1 breath out,
Mm.
2 breaths in, 1 breath out. So I was like, all right. So took a full breath in and then another breath on top of it and it went out. And I was like, hang on a sec. Something just changed then. Like it's just I can feel something going on. Like so I just kept doing it and like then my stitch just went away. And then I was like, because I remember like I was on like pretty good pace. Like I reckon I was on 208 pace and then I jogged for like maybe I don't know, close to 10K, maybe not quite 10K, but then got to probably like 7K and then got to 32K. I ran the last 10K really strong. And then I saw Phil Sussman at the end and he was like, oh, what time do you run? I was like, oh, 209.50, which was a big PB. And he's like,
Mm.
what? He's like, I caught you at 32K. And I was like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, I was struggling, but I finished good. Like once it was good, like I felt really good. So I knew I could, but yeah, just I had that memory of my, coach when I was a kid. And then I was like, all right, let's just try that. And then I saw this video came up, of that that Huberman podcast.
Yeah.
And he was like said this thing about like when people get anxiety to do this breathing thing, which is double breath in, one breath out, and it's like a release of your body and like tells your body to relax. And I was like, oh, well, that's exactly what I'm doing. And then he did say like, yeah, but runners, like if you get a stitch, do this. I was like, geez, I wish I had seen this like 5 years ago. And then so going into Fukuoka, I was just like, all right, I have a plan. Like I know exactly what I'm gonna do. Like before London, I was having dreams the night before the race of getting a stitch and having to pull out. Like it was like I wasn't thinking about how I was gonna race. I was thinking I'm gonna get a stitch. Like what do I do? I don't know what to do. But going to Fukuoka, I was like, all right, I know I'm gonna get the stitch. That's fine. I know exactly what to do now. So I got it, dealt with it for a few K, and then was good to go and could just finish.
Do you Have you ever thought about, I guess, having that breathing routine the whole way? Like, would you start with that breathing routine, or is it just too hard to maintain a decent
It's
pace?
yeah, so like I still can't do it at like full effort. Like when I'm
Right.
clicking along with like 3 minute Ks, it's really hard to do. So I still have to slow down just slightly. So the good thing at Fukuoka was that I was at the front of the pack, but the pack was like probably 15 people. So
Mm.
over like 2 or 3 K, I was still intact with the pack. So I never really like lost contact. But it is something I've started to do a bit more early. Like I'll just maybe every now and then just do like a few breaths like that and just and see how it goes. And then if as soon as I get any feeling, I'm just like, all right, let's just do it for a bit and hope.
Mm.
Mm. Are these stitches something that you ever get on like an easy long run, or is
No.
it just when you're working hard?
Yeah, it's just when I'm like going at a pretty intense effort and I've been running for a good like 70 to 80 minutes. So it's like
Mm.
I don't like I've had it a couple of times in half marathons and it's I think it's either with downhills, maybe you can bring it on a little bit easier.
Mm.
I don't know, maybe just with the way I run, I might just like open up a bit more. Um, but yeah, usually like I barely ever get it in training. Like it'd be very, very rare for me to get it in training. It's just when I have that consistent effort for that long.
Mm. Man, that is frustrating. It's quite funny
Yeah.
though. You just listen to you remember that conversation you had with your high school coach and
Oh, it just like
all these
popped into my
specialists.
head. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was like, yeah, but just like it was just so funny that that just like popped into my head at that time because
Yeah,
like yeah,
real
otherwise I
talk.
don't know. Yeah,
Mate, I wanted to rewind a little bit to the Ineos 159 challenge because
yeah,
you're one of the few guys who was actually a part of that sub two in Vienna with Kipchoge, and just obviously it was really successful. But what was that experience like? You and a bunch of the world's best runners all kind of working together, sacrificing yourself. I say sacrificing yourself, just pacing Kipchoge. I mean, that must have been quite weird.
yeah. Well, like when you ask if like 59, 57 was the best run of my career, I reckon Ineos 159 is the best run of my career because it's so weird because like it's just there's that many people out there and the amount of tension you got from it, like just the amount of people messaging me like I saw you on TV doing that, like this, it was so cool. But like that was yeah, such a great experience. Like I'm so lucky to be a part of that. I was actually supposed to run a marathon and around that time, and then Nick messaged me. This is like a few months before, and he's like, "Oh, like you've been asked to do Ineos." And I was like, "I think I have to do that." Like, if I didn't do it, I'd be kicking myself now. So I'm so glad I did it. But yeah, being around like all those like the all the paces were such good athletes too.
Mm.
And just kind of spending. I actually went twice. So I went for the testing event, where they probably had 20 athletes there, and then the real event when there's like 30 or 40. But yeah, it was such a great experience and like, yeah, I don't know when he was actually we could tell that he was going to do it, like because even though like he was looking so strong, but you're just like, oh geez, like what if he just like drops off a little bit and then you
Mm.
see him running like 240 pace for the last K, and it's like it was just like such an exciting time.
Will we ever see anything like that again? Like a staged race like that? I'm not sure we will.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there was a little bit of talk about doing something. I don't know what event it was for, but I think Nike was like thinking about doing something like last year, but it obviously didn't happen. But I don't know what it would be for. It's like hard with the men's times about the what barriers you can break now. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, they don't do it for the women because I'll probably get a faster PB than my marathon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. They're getting crazy fast these days. Look, another thing we wanted to ask you about, obviously you're a professional athlete, but you do have a podcast as well. So we want to talk about what was kind of the inspiration behind starting the podcast, and how do you feel that you're able to speak kind of so openly about your training and your life on there?
Yeah. So I do it with a guy named Joel Tobin White, who's one of my mates and training partners. So I was living with him at the time, and he was on another podcast before that, and then just like a special series one, and then that stopped, and then I don't know, just one day he came into my room, he's like, we should do a podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, we could do it, but didn't think it would actually happen, and then I think he said it again the next day. I've been thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, I've been thinking about it too. I'm like, let's do it, and we were just like, we asked a few people like, what do you reckon? And they were like, yeah, do it. Like, I feel like there's a few more doing it in the UK, but like there wasn't that many running
Mm.
podcasts in Australia. So we were like, so yeah, we're just like, let's just, someone just said to us, look, get some mics and just record an episode and just put it out there. Like the hardest thing is actually clicking record and doing it. I like, because we were like, oh, like, yeah, we don't want to be shit. Like we were just, he's like, just do it, just start it and do it. And
Mm.
I think it's been really good because like a lot of people have, I don't know, been interested in it, but it's been good for me to like kind of just talk about my training and
Mm.
get it off my chest and about what I'm going through. And like I think like people think, yeah, like you run fast, it's like all easy. I'm like, nah, like there's really tough days and like injuries and just like times you don't have great motivation and stuff like that that like I go through as well. So I think people love seeing that side as well. Not that it's just, oh, I'm having good session here, good session there. It's like, nah, some days it's like you're not enjoying it. So I think it's been, yeah, good to speak about that for me and kind of, I don't know, take it's funny because like it's still running, but it's like taking my mind off training, I guess.
Yeah, you don't have a facade or anything like that. It's not surface level. And I think that's what's quite surprising for people like us. Well, especially me when I listen to it, because I think a lot of athletes, even on YouTube and stuff, you just know that, we're seeing a little bit here, we're going behind the scenes a little bit, but we're not really getting exactly how they feel and what's going on in their head. But you are able to open up. And I was gonna say, how does that impact your running? But it sounds like it almost impacts it in a positive way.
Yeah, like and like there definitely is times like like when you have a shocking race or something like that, and then you have to go on the podcast and like talk to everyone about it. I do remember one race like I was kind of I'd run a marathon and then I was like coming back and I was just did like a local cross country race and like I knew I wasn't going to go that well, but like I just wanted to have a hard hit out. And I remember like getting halfway through and I started thinking about like, oh, what am I going to like? I was like not running that well. I was getting beat, and I'm like, what am I going to say on the podcast? Like, what am I going to like tell? Like, what's my story going to be? And then I was just like, after I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, don't be thinking that in a race. Like,
Yeah.
this is like, it was like a good wake up call. I'm like, I go to my race, I do my race, and then I'll deal with the consequences or whatever, or talk about it.
Mm.
Like, I'm not racing for the podcast. Like, I'm racing for me, and then I'll tell my story on the podcast. So I think that was a good wake up call. But yeah, I've run pretty well. Like my coach was kind of saying there's a podcast curse, but um, he said it this morning. I was like, nah, no way, because like I ran the Australian record. My housemate, we just put out another one. Who my housemate Sarah Billings is doing. She just ran a PB last week, so I'm like, there's no curse, mate. It's going good.
Yeah, how was your coach, Nick, when he kind of find out? Was he a bit like, oh, I don't know if I want all my training on there, for example, or was he quite supportive?
He didn't. I don't think he cares too much about the training. Like it's most of it's on Strava.
Mm.
Anyway, but and like he's pretty good with like talking about it and letting people know. But I I remember one of the first episodes, like I kind of like said that I was like questioning this session or something like that, and like saying that he fucked it up and he got it wrong, and I was just like, and then he had a bit of a go at me, and I was like, yeah, you know what, that's actually fair enough. Like that thing's probably like a thing between me and him,
Mhm.
and I was probably at the time like I reckon I was a bit tired and probably just had a bad session and threw a tantrum, and then yeah, and like probably didn't need to let everyone know about it, but it's probably more on me than it was on him. So, but yeah, and then yeah, since then, like me and Nick have a really good relationship, so I don't really question his training that much anyway. But yeah, as long as it's not getting in the way of my training, he's got no problem.
I was going to say this sounds juicy, but
Yeah,
on the anyway, on the topic of Nick, man. I mean, how long you been with him? Because obviously he is, a very, very famous coach in the sport. Clearly a very good coach as well. Yeah, how long you been with him, and when did that kind of relationship start?
yeah. So I've been coached by him for nearly 12 years now. But before that, I had probably a year and a half of just being managed by him. Like, he would just he took me to Europe, and to America, I think. And then, like, so got me in a few races and just, but like I was only probably 19, 20 at the time. And then in 2012, there's a guy named Ryan Gregson who was like Australian record holder in the 1500 at the time. Good mate of mine, and he lived like a few hours from me. And then he told me he's moving just outside of Melbourne, to live with Collis Birmingham, who was our best 5K, 10K guy at the time. And he said, like, do you want to come down and like just like stay for a few weeks and like we can just train and just you can help me settle in? And I was like, yeah, sounds good. And then he said, oh, then if you like it, you could move down and live with us. And I was like, you know what? I'm just doing it. Like, I'm just going to move down now. I think that this is the best thing for my career. Didn't even ask Nick. I just joined the group and then like I don't know, started to have to train. And then after a few weeks, he was just like, so do I coach you now? I was like, yeah, you do. I was like, you got no option now. So, but yeah, so that was like 2012. And yeah, then like straight away, like I pretty much had success. Like I went down as a 1340 guy. And then the next year ran 1318, and went to the world champs in Moscow.
Jeez.
Wow. And with that, then obviously you've been with him such a long time. How has that relationship developed from sort of turning up at training, telling him that he was coaching you to now, where obviously I presume you're a lot closer now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, I think, I kind of like followed Collis Birmingham, who was like he's one of Nick's like he's now assistant coach to Melbourne Track Club, but like Collis was always like I guess one of like the leaders of the group, and I kind of followed him, and then so I think I kind of then became once Cole's retired, like a little bit in that position as well. Kind of someone that the younger people can talk to, and if people have questions, like they can come to me. But so I think that's left mine and Nick relationship really good. He's kind of I'd say I'm pretty easy to coach as well. Like I feel like I know what I need to do most of the time, and just get it done. Like don't really complain apart from that one time where I talked about in the episode and he yelled at me. But yeah, I think we got a really good relationship.
Do you think going into, post your career, do you think going into coaching is something you'd want to do?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of changed my mind. Like I think I'm a little bit of a control freak,
Mm.
and I would find it hard sitting on the sideline and being like not in control of what's happening right now. So, but yeah, I don't know. Like I see, yeah, like Nick's had a good life doing it, and yeah, Coles is doing it now. But don't know if there'd be a job there for me with Melbourne Track Club.
It's getting a bit busy up at the top of the ladder
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
But let's talk about the training group and the setup, because Australia's not weird, but I guess a bit unusual in a sense that the pro scene is really connected to kind of the public running scene as well, to that sub elite scene. Is that correct? Like from what I see,
yeah,
you guys will have loads of like sub elites just jumping in with your sessions and stuff. Who coaches those guys, or do they just follow what you do?
yeah, yeah. So pretty much at our when we go to training on a Tuesday morning, there's like four groups with us, pretty much. So it's like Melbourne Track Club. There's probably three groups. Then there's two other groups that are more like juniors or just like a little bit lower level guys that like Nick and Collis, like because Nick and Collis can't say yes to anyone, but they can come down to
Mm.
training, be coached by one of these other coaches, and that coach will keep an eye on them, but they'll still do our training.
Right.
So it can get pretty busy, but we're pretty good at kind of Nick's pretty good at like breaking us up into groups, and people be jumping in, jumping out. So like someone who is like a 14:30 runner, like may not do the main session with us, but might do some of the reps at the end with us, or like might be instead of doing 1200s, he's doing 800s or something like that. So, and then you got some of the guys that can help the girls as well. So it works really well.
I mean, I think that's amazing that you pros are kind of connected to that, to the club scene, and those runners, because it's not often you find that around the world.
Yeah, like I don't know, I think it's like Melbourne a little bit as well. Like we're very like even like the recreational scene, like there's like heaps of group runs that like the pro runners go to. Like I guess like no one like calls us pros. Like it's funny, like
Mm,
we're just like runners, and like everyone's just kind of goes to runs together, and like we can go to long runs on Sunday, and like it's just like a lot of different abilities, and like might start together and then break up a little bit, but and there's like heaps of like group social runs that people are going to, and yeah, it's a good thing.
mm.
Mm, definitely. Look, we got to get into it. Everyone wants to know some sort of juicy training secrets, but obviously going into Paris, are there any sort of kind of staple Nick Beddoes sessions that you expect to be doing that maybe you're dreading or maybe you're looking forward to?
Oh, to be honest, what I'm dreading is what I'm doing right now, because like Nick's always getting me. He think like my natural ability was like running the 5K and the 10K, and like when I ran 207, like I was in America that year, and I ran like 13:21 at the start of the year, and like I was probably in like 13:15 shape, and like 27:30, 27:40 shape. So he's always like very keen on between marathons going back to that kind of training. So like right now I'm training with like Stu McSwain and Jack Rayner, getting absolutely beat up. Like my body's struggling to get through it. But it's something. So I'm looking forward to getting to the marathon training, and because that like that's the easy stuff for me.
Mm.
I'd much rather run 200K a week and just do heaps of easy running. But yeah, in terms of marathon stuff, like we're pretty simple where we just kind of get on race pace, um, just get longer reps and probably like 20K worth of reps each week, and just start with like 3K reps, 4K reps, 5K reps, maybe a couple of 10K reps, and then maybe some progressive runs. But yeah, a lot of stuff at race pace.
Will that change at all going into Paris? Bearing in mind race pace might be slower.
Yeah, I don't like it's hard because like I still feel like the like can't just go and run at 3:10s and be in
Yeah.
3:10 marathon shape. I think like still
Mm,
training for to be in 206 shape is the way to do it. I guess I'll probably get over some hills a bit more.
mm,
I got a good like hill circuit not far from here, my house. It's probably like 15K, and it's yeah like some rolling hills on the road. So I'll probably get onto that a bit more, or at least doing majority some of my session on the flat and some on the hills. And then yeah, got to deal with the heat as well. So I think next week I'm gonna jump in a heat chamber and do a little block, and then maybe another one in May.
mm.
Mm.
Oof. I finally got to ask as well, mate. The Australian, I mentioned it earlier, the Australian distance running scene right now seems to be taking off a little bit. You got some great talent coming through. Is there a reason behind that? Is there anything going on in Australia, or is it just again the old kind of what happened here in the UK, success breeding success?
I think definitely like it goes back a little bit like we had Craig Mottram back in the day, like kind of 2005, 2006, and he I guess inspired a few people, which was like Collis and like Benny Saint. And then I guess that inspired like Ryan Gregson, myself. But then yeah, I think when guys like Stewie have come along, I think Stewie's been a big one, especially a big one for Melbourne Track Club. Like I
Mm,
remember like he just I don't know, he just got really good. Like and he just grew as well. Like Stewie trained with me for a couple of years, and he was just like he would keep up with me with training, and like he was always looking great, and then get into a race and just would be nowhere near as good. And then just one day like just went around 7:34 in Doha, and you're just like, okay, like that makes sense. Like we've been waiting for that for years. Like we're not, no one was like, all these people were like surprised, but like, nah, like he should have done that a year ago. But he just hasn't. And then straight away, like he just, like his attitude was just like amazing. He was just like, like he became one of the best in the world, and he just believed it straight away. And he was just like, I want to be the best in the world, and just like started thinking like that and started talking like that. And like I remember just, I think, yeah, I reckon I hadn't seen him for a few months, and then saw him in Europe, and he was just like he's had such this positive attitude of just trying hard and like wanting to go and win races and win diamond leagues and stuff like that. And I was just like, and that started rubbing off on like other people in the group. Um and then yeah, I guess like now, like I guess you guys have such like a strong 1500, and it's the same thing with us. Like if you want to make the team now, you just have to go and run really, really quick. So it's just like I know like people get shocked when they see the World Athletic Standards come out every year, but then heaps of people go and do it. It's like when you see the standard and what the bar is, you just have to go and do it. So more people start going and do it. It's just like they change their belief. They see their peers do it, so they go, okay, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too. So, but yeah, it's just a really good running going on in Australia right now.
Do you think Stewie will step up? Do you reckon he'll be a marathon runner one day?
I don't know. He's a big boy. He's it'd be yeah, big body to get around. But I think he'll run one. But man, he'll run a great half marathon right now. Like he'd run 58 minutes, I reckon, 58 something. I reckon he could run. We'll say 59 flat. Like he could fly in a half marathon. So he's that fit.
Jesus. So
He's
yeah,
a bit
I mean,
like,
obviously.
but he's running a 1K next week as well, and like he could run anything in that too. He's a
Stupid
beast.
Wow.
range.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Just before we finish up, then, mate. Where can we see you next? Are you racing anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm doing a half marathon in Japan at the end of April. So Japan's like our Spain for you guys, like nice quick roads and not too far away. But yeah, so to be honest, this one isn't actually the quickest one. It's a bit hilly and can be a little bit hot, but it'd be good to go there, have a bit of a hit out, and I think I just need something on the radar to get me working towards. Then I'll probably do another half marathon in Australia at the start of June, and then I'll head to Europe and get some nice warm weather.
So you got a good couple races lined up then. I didn't know if you would just avoid competing before Paris, but
Nah, I don't know. I like doing half marathons and stuff as well. Like yeah, like to be honest, like if I do these ones in Australia, it's not like I'm not gonna go and try to run 59 minutes or 60
yeah.
minutes. Like I'll probably try to control a bit more, run 62, 63. So good, like a nice hit out, but not killing myself, and I should be able to like bounce back and train 2 or 3 days later. So
Yeah. Perfect. Well, look, thanks very much for coming on the podcast, mate, and we wish you all the best for Paris.
no worries. Thank you. Heaps for having me on.
Thanks, buddy.
Right, there it is. There you've heard from Mr. Brett Robinson. Obviously, we're always going to say it, but fascinating episode from my perspective anyway. Just to hear about kind of some of his troubles with his stitches and stuff. I think maybe some of you listening can probably relate to some of that stuff too. But yeah, I think imagine the pressure when it's your full-time job and your career and you just don't know, or you sort of do know that it's going to happen, but you don't know how bad it's going to be on the day. Just another stressor of running at that level. I think amazing that he's carrying on, and good to see that he's kind of come up with some sort of coping mechanism for it. But obviously, apart from that, I mean, the training sounds like it's going well with Nick Bordeaux, and he's feeling good and feeling in good shape. But yeah, it must be difficult going into it knowing they could be 50-50 kind of in that sense.
I think a few athletes have these like ghost. They're not injuries, but like these, these ghost issues, which like are just, they can't get answers for. Very frustrating. They tend to like come and go, whether it be like an injury that sort of comes and goes, and you can never put your foot on what's wrong with you. Or like in Brett's case, yeah, this like phantom stitch that he gets. Very, very difficult. I think, how he opened up and said like, part of him sometimes just thinks, Jesus, should I just drop down a level and just clean up the whole sub elite scene and do all these like fun runs and take home some prize money? Because yeah, to get to the biggest stage and to kind of fall down by such a it sounds like such an amateur excuse, doesn't it? When you say, oh, I got a stitch. It's like, what's wrong with you, man? Can't you fuel properly? Like, how long you been in the
Yeah.
game? But it's obviously a lot more than that. And look, yeah, I've heard it so many times when athletes have gone and seen so many specialists to get to the bottom of like an injury or something biomechanically that's wrong, and they could just never get answers. And you dread to think the amount of money that's gone into that, and the time and the stress and the headaches. So it is just an example of it's not always, it's not always rosy on the other side. Um, and it is hard being an elite, as we know, to be honest with you. But yeah, very cool story, and just a great guy. Opens up a lot about. I think his podcast, by the way, we got to plug that for the kudos, because him and Joel started that up, and it's actually brilliant to see just guys at a very, very high level. Joel just a bit of triathlon as well, and they're just so genuine, and it's very
Mm.
authentic, and they do open up. And like Brett said, like he will go in hard on how he's feeling, whether he's down or whether he's going through a high period in his life, and running's clicking and everything like that. So yeah, you just get a real honest account of what's going on. So you don't see it much. I mean, there's YouTubes and stuff, but I still don't feel like we ever get the full picture sometimes. So but on that podcast, you definitely do.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, definitely make sure you go listen to that. Keep listening to us as well. Don't replace us. But definitely make sure you look out for that one too if you like your pods. Look, let's get into some of these races that are coming up then, mate, because we mentioned the 10. Obviously, it's tomorrow night, so people will have had the results by the time this pod comes out. But is it the best chance of the year to get your 10K time?
To get a 10K standard, I think so. I think so. There's a few reasons as well. I think athletes can carry, look, they're always going to carry quite high mileage, but I think in the peak of summer, it's a lot harder to get yourself into a real kind of mileage heavy block that you probably need to operate at a world class level over 10,000. And those who do stay in a mileage block, you won't see them race too much. Like we used to see Farah perform year in, year out over the 5 and the 10. I mean, he didn't race that much, did he? Few and far between. He would gear himself towards that championship. And so I feel like coming off of the winter, because there hasn't been many races, they've had one or two tune-up races, maybe a 3K, maybe a 5K for a lot of these athletes. They're gonna nail this. They're gonna nail this 10. And look, I think we got Charles Hicks, Jack Rowe, Paddy Diva, Sam Aitkins pulled out, by the way. Um, I think all of them are going to get a standard.
Mm,
I
yeah,
think we're going to have.
and
I think we're going to have three Brits with the standard, and then on the women's side as well, Ben Keith, Jess Judd. I think they're going to come away with standard as well.
yeah, I think you're bang on, mate. And for someone like Jack Rowe, who what last year is looking and thinking, "Oh, I'm a bit off those times. If he comes away from this weekend and then now he's got two standards, what a kind of year that would be. But I also think so. You got two standards. Obviously, it comes down to selection as well. But how do you then pick? How do you then pick what you focus on for the next few weeks? I know obviously they got Highgate as a trial and then British champs and things like that. But how do you go about deciding which one to
Well,
focus on? Because you mentioned, I know you mentioned someone like Farah, who look can train the same and be world class at both, or not world class, the best, potentially the best ever at both. But I think for athletes that are slightly down a level from that, you do have to still be specific with your training between the 5 and the 10.
yeah, and it's going to be interesting because if Rowe, Hicks, and Diva nailed a 10K standard, which I think they will, um, does that mean they will have to go to Highgate and compete at a trial and do another 10,000 before the Olympics? Because then I feel like that really changes the shape of their season. Because
Mm.
whereas I think if they nailed the 10, they would then get stuck into another training block and then kind of start looking to that maybe the Europeans or British Champs 5,000, where they would use a few tune-up races. Maybe we'll see them in a 15 and a 5K, and they'll compete, they get competitive, they'll practice kind of race tactics and stuff, and they would just do that. And their next 10,000 would be the Olympic Games. But I think they are going to have to do the British Championships, which is obviously going to be Highgate and for the 10. So I think it's they yeah, they're going to have to. reshape their season basically. And yeah, when you talk about picking, that's if they want to go for the 10,000. So it would be stupid if all three of them got the standard if they didn't go for the 10,000 because I think the 5K. Well, at the moment it's
Yeah.
just at the 5K is it just Aiken, Rowe, and Diva?
No, Mills.
Mills. So sorry, yeah. So it's four for the 5K, which means there's a lot more risk going to the trials if you turn down that 10K spot. Um,
And it's also later as well. Like, because you could, I think, well, look, I think you may as well say you're on a 10 standard. You may as well go compete at Highgate, book your spot, and then be like, okay, if I really want to go for the 5 now, I go and try and make the 5 team. But at the same time, we know what these athletes are like. They all back themselves. They
mm,
all think they're great, which they need to. I'm not. That's not me kind of dissing them. I'm saying yeah, they need to be like that to compete at that level. They might be like, look, I'm backing myself to make that 5K team, so I'm not doing Highgate. I'm just going to make sure I'm ready as I can be for British Champs 5K, and then they back that they're going to make the team there because they really want to go for the 5. So yeah, be fascinating to watch. But do you know what is good? The fact we're even talking about trial races to make our 5 and 10K teams when in the
mm,
past couple of
mm,
years a standard would have done it
mm.
is really good to see. And I think Brett mentioned it as well in his interview that I think we've mentioned it previous on the pod, like that actually I think some of these crazy that we called them a couple of years ago, World Athletic Standards, have really brought on the sport, particularly for our athletes. So hey, it was a good decision in the end.
100%. I mean, yeah, they're nailing it. And it's races like this, like let's be honest, like I regular seasons, like I'm not sure they would do it. And even Highgate, like could we see the boys run sub 27:10 at Highgate or 27 flat? Like I'm not so sure. I mean, Chelimo put on an absolute display last year and ran 27:01. Saying that
Mm,
track's been relayed at Highgate, but it's not California. Um, and as well, like don't think it quite has the depth at that 27:10 level. Like I said,
yeah,
Chilimo was a complete runaway victor last year, and three of them broke away at about 5K in. And then you've got big packs, and there's a lot of depth around 27:45 to 28:10. Like that's where the depth is at Highgate. Whereas this race, the depth is 27:15, and there's loads of guys who operate in that. I mean, I'm looking at this men's field now, almost half of the field has run sub 13 minutes for God's sake, thanks to
mm,
Boston. But there's a lot of 27:10, 13:01, that sort of, a lot of PBs like that. And then you've got you guys like Grant Fisher who are 26:33, which is just absurd. So yeah, and the same on the women's side as well. You got your people, your women who are running 30 flat, or well, I say 30 flat, but 30:18. Carissa Schweitzer, ridiculous. She's running, so we're good to see her back. Alicia Monson 30:03, and then you just judge 30:30. So again, the depth around that, and I think this race is just it is a cauldron, isn't it? It's a melting pot of talent around those key standards, and also to be fair, look out for results. If you haven't seen them already, but look out for the results of the other Brits. I think Rory Leonard, Scott Beattie, Ellis Cross, they're all going in
mm.
the slower section as well. So some fast times will be coming out of there for sure as we wake up on Sunday morning. But yeah, what else? Obviously, Podium Festival, that's the big one this weekend. So we'll be reviewing that next week's episode. Yeah, talking about stellar lineups. Jesus, I mean, this is going to be an event for the ages, I think. And it could well reshape or kind of ignite the fire in a few of these big players in the sport, how they go about putting on races, because I think the team element, all the brands are involved. All the brands are going to show off, one, their athletes, but two, their product, their shoes, and obviously they don't want to directly be competing against each other, but to have them all in the same place, I think is amazing. And actually, further down as well with all the sub 15 race, sub 16 race on the women's side, you've got a 16:30 race, you've got so many races. I think it's going to be about 8 or 9 5K races, about 80, 90 strong. So yeah, look out for that.
Yeah, those fields looking pretty ridiculous. Obviously, check out Podium 5K on Instagram kind of to get all the lowdown from those. But yeah, I know we had Chris Barnes on the podcast a couple of weeks ago to preview the event. I think at the time he couldn't announce quite some of the athletes that were in there at that point. But obviously, as you can see from the start list now and see from the results as you guys are listening, pretty impressive lineups to get some of those people to compete in a road 5K in March. Obviously, when they got plenty of other things to be cracking on with come the summer. So great to see them all come together. And who do you reckon is going to take the wins, Matt?
Surely Gebuer. I mean, what did he run last year? 12:40 or so for 5K. He's run very, very fast on the road as well. I think there's a Kenyan in there who's run 27 flat on the roads, Daniel Cosson, of Kenya as well. So there's a few up front. And but then Alex Yee, I'm looking forward to seeing him run. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen Yee in a real domestic race. Outside of obviously these triathlons that he's been doing. And yeah, I mean, if he could run 13 teens. I really do think that. And so seeing him run will be fascinating. But I'm looking forward to just seeing a lot of guys break 14 again. I mean, we've had our mile already, but if the weather's good, conditions are good, I think we could see a lot of guys break 14, just like we could see a lot of women break 16.
Yeah, for sure. That's it, isn't it? Some of these domestic races, that's sometimes the best stat that comes out is how many British athletes, for example, are getting under those sorts of barriers. So good to see.
Yep. One more shout out. I just want to shout out Iffley Festival Miles, or Bannister Miles, shall I say. That event's entries are open for it. There's going to be a stacked elite race in the evening, but also there's a community mile or a mass road mile in the morning. Going to start in the town centre, finish parallel to Iffley Road or Iffley Track, shall I say. And yeah, 6th of May, Bank Holiday Monday. I think it's going to be one of the best mile events that's ever took place. There's going to be a lot of past and present milers there, and yeah, that elite field definitely shaping up to be a sub 4. So if you want an early fast clock in over the mile, over the 1500, of course there'll be a 1500 split as well. Enter the Bannister Miles or kind of get in touch for an elite entry.
Yeah, is that a closed road course as well? A proper
Closed road course, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but if you're, I guess, most people listen to this podcast probably, qualify for BMCs and stuff as well. So, on the track in the evening will be the BMC, and we'll have an elite mile to crown off the evening as well, and sub 4 attempt on Iffley Road, which we haven't seen in a few years.
Yeah. Not as many as you'd expect, is it? But I think if you want to go run sub 4 in this country, that's the place to go do it, isn't it? So, yeah, definitely. And Matt, your junior to senior camp sold out.
Yeah, boy. So yeah, junior senior camps sold out. That's going to be 9th to the 11th of April. And yeah, just brilliant. We're going to have 40 kids on a support in the camp as well. So we're going to have them there in a capacity, which is going to be amazing. And yeah, looking to just basically develop that next generation and highlight them to the kind of ups and downs that they may face over the next few years. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled if you did want to attend, because we're going to have, hopefully, we've got some more in the kind of pipeline end of the summer as well.
Perfect. Right. Well, I think that's it from us, mate. But we'll catch you very soon. I think we got another exciting guest. We might have tipped it at some point in this episode. So for those of you who had kind of keen ears listening to that, we threw a few hints in. So look out for that one. But thanks for listening as always, and we'll catch you very soon.